Good morning. When Dwayne asked me to give this presentation, I started off thinking about everything I know about CEI, and I thought I knew a lot when I was at TxDOT. From the owner side, Chris Briggs and I put together the first CEI RFQ in the state on US 75 in Collin County. And so I thought I knew a lot until I went to work for H&TB, and then getting on the other side of that story, I learned that there were a lot of things I didn't know. So when I put this together, I thought about what it might be useful for people at TxDOT to hear about things I've learned since I've become a consultant. Maybe that's information you can use or on the next one you put together. So I kind of did a top 10 list, kind of like Letterman, only it's not as exciting as Letterman, because it's more fun to start from 10 and work your way backwards to get to 1. So I'm just going to go through some of the top 10 things I think were important that I've learned since I've been a consultant. The first thing is it takes a lot of work to win work. The day that the RFQ gets posted, I probably get 5 or 6 emails saying it's out. We've done, all the consultants in the room, I'm sure, have done plenty of marketing. We've all been to the TxDOT offices to find out exactly what the team is you're looking for, and now we're ready to look at your questions and look at your NLCs and see if we put together the right team to win. The questions, we tear the questions apart. We look at every word of the question. We think about, are there hidden meanings in the question? And we have great people like Norma Glasscock and Joe Jankuska who tell us, no, just answer the question. But we still look at where every comma is in the question and how we can interpret it and how we can find the best team to answer the question. But it's a lot of work. We have lots of people working for the entire duration of the time you give us. If you give us 2 weeks to turn in our statement of qualifications, we're working on that pretty much full time, that whole time with some marketing help, so people can get us to spell all our words right and use the correct punctuation in those things and make sure that we're writing the correct answers. And that's because we want to win. We want to win the job, so we want to give you the answer that you're looking for. And number 9 on my list, the debrief is really important. The most fun debrief is when we get a debrief for a project we've won. And I've been in to talk to Joe Jankuska, and he'll tell me what a great job I did, and those are great. But most debriefs are not about winning. Most debriefs are when we don't win. And those are a lot like getting a bad evaluation as an employee, or being, from the TxDOT side, it's like giving a bad evaluation, and it's painful for everybody. But they're really important to us that you give us honest feedback about what we did wrong, because we owe it to you and we owe it to our company to do a better job the next time, so that we can do a better job showing you that we can put the right team together to serve you in the CEI arena. So we want to make sure that in the debrief you're just brutally honest with us and tell us everything that we did wrong so that we can improve. Number 8 on my list, every consultant is unique. You already know a lot of this. There are survey firms, companies that only do survey, companies that do utility adjustments. There are companies that specialize in environmental and schematic. There are companies that do it all, but every company has a different structure. And in addition to just having those specialties or that full range service that you get from a consultant, every consultant has a different business practice, and every consultant has a different financial model. So that's why when you're negotiating rates and when you're negotiating to get that final contract put together, you see a lot of different rates, a lot of different numbers, because everybody's modeling things differently. I mean, a company might have, it might be an employee-owned company, or it might have stockholders on the stock exchange, or it might be just one individual who owns the company. But every company is a little bit different, and that's why you see a lot of differences when you're looking at rates and all in negotiations. So that leads us to this question: what the heck is a FAR overhead rate? I got asked recently in a contract negotiation, why am I paying for your laptops? I'm not paying for another company's laptops, so why am I paying for yours? And honestly, I had to go back and ask my accountant at our office, why are they paying for laptops? And he showed me this document. It's our FAR overhead rate. That's the Federal Acquisition Regulation rate. This is mine. It's little. It's not even big. This is the document that tells how we can ask you to pay our overhead. You need to ask for this when you're negotiating rates. If you have any questions about what a consultant's charging you for overhead rates, you can see this. Now, you people cannot see mine, but TxDOT can see it when I'm negotiating with them. So the FAR rate, it's an audited rate. H&TB's corporate office is in Kansas City, so ours is audited by the Missouri DOT. Whatever state your corporate office is in is usually where your FAR overhead rate is audited. But not everybody has one, and you don't even have to have one. But if you do have one, it tells what you can use for your federal rate on a federally funded contract. And it's not, I know a lot of people think, well, everything's in overhead that's not a direct expense, but that's not true. There are a lot of things that we're not allowed to include in our overhead, like dues to an organization or a booth at a trade fair or something like that. There are a lot of things that aren't included. Those are just expenses that we don't reflect back to you. So it's a good document for TxDOT to get to read, I think, to see how overhead is established. The next thing, what's the difference? Number 6 is what's the difference between office and field overhead rates? So then when you get further into your negotiations for rates, you'll see that a lot of companies, most companies, have 2 overhead rates, a field rate and an office rate. And the field rate's typically a lot lower. Well, why is that? Well, because you are absorbing a lot of our costs that would be overhead for our office personnel. Our field rate is lower because you're providing the office space and a lot of other things, and that's where those laptops come back in. In my audited FAR report, our field rate is based on you, TxDOT, providing laptops. So in that example, that's how you can get the field rate, is we have a list of things that are provided by the state or by the owner in order for you to achieve that field overhead rate. There are a lot of things that go along with that. There may be a time period that's associated with you getting that field overhead rate. It may be that the person has to, the person who has the field rate may have to work full-time on one project or full-time for TxDOT. So there are a lot of things to know about these overhead rates, and it's really, like I said, everybody's is different, so it's good to take a look at that FAR document for any particular consultant that you're negotiating with, so you can kind of see where your overhead rates, what they're based on. Number 6, scope matters. This was really going to be about level of effort matters, but scope matters too, but level of effort didn't have a cute graphic. So, scope really matters. When we're putting together the scope, or when we're looking at the scope in the RFQ, and when we're using that to determine our level of effort, it's really important to us that you tell us exactly what you want. So when you're putting together, when TxDOT's putting together the RFQ, if you know you don't want survey, cross it out. That helps us narrow down our choice of what sub-consultants we're going to use on our team. It can give us a little bit more compact team if there's certain services that you know that you don't want in the contract. And then as far as level of effort goes, it's really important that we have that good conversation before we start negotiating level of effort, so that we don't, throw at you everyone plus the kitchen sink, that we just give you the services that you need. And we want to give you just the people that you need. So that's why we need to have that good conversation about level of effort. This is a big one for me. Consultants need to build and train their CEI staff. I don't want to sound like the pot calling the kettle black here, but we cannot continue to only get our personnel from TxDOT. The supply and the demand, the supply is shrinking at TxDOT for us to take your best chief inspectors and your best record keepers and your best engineers and make them our CEI staff. We've done that, and now we need to figure out how to wean ourselves from TxDOT personnel. And the next generation of CEI that comes along, we need to be training our own personnel and building our own staff When I was at TxDOT, it made me really mad when people came in and stole my employees. Retirees, those were fair game, but I really didn't like it when someone came in and hired my existing employees and then turned around and gave me those as their CEI staff. So I'm pretty sensitive to that now, and I don't do it. But the minute they announce that they're retiring, I'm at their doorstep trying to hire them. But I know that we're going to have to do better. And the way to do that is we really have to do some on-the-job training to train those personnel to serve as CEI. I've hired a couple of guys that just got out of the Army and made them Inspector 1s. I'm looking for ways. I've got a couple of really good record keepers, and I want them to train some of our lower level record keepers to be record keepers. Those record keepers, man, if they haven't worked at TxDOT, they don't know how to do this. So they're almost we almost always are having to find our record keeping staff from TxDOT, but we've got to figure out how to move forward, because that's how we're going to keep the price down for CEI for you. Like I said, that supply and demand thing, your supply is getting a lot smaller. Our demand for those people is getting higher, and that results in a higher cost of the personnel. That rate keeps going up. You keep trying to hold the rate down, and the only way that we can overcome that is to train our own people. So be patient with us with on-the-job training. I've taken some EITs to the field and made them low-level inspectors, but we have to be able to train those people in order to move on from hiring all of your people. Number 3, consultants need to build and maintain a communications protocol with the contractor. One thing I learned with contractors is, they know how to work with TxDOT. They've been doing it for 100 years now, so they know how to interact with in Texas particularly, with TxDOT, but they don't know how to interact yet with CEI. They're still learning, they're on a learning curve, and we want to figure out how to make them comfortable and confident that we're going to provide them with the same good service that you do. So I think that starts really with we, the consultants, need to establish our communication protocol with TxDOT first. So we need to figure out not with the contractor in the room, but we need to figure out what our communications escalation ladder is and how you want us to communicate with the contractor. So once we've established that meeting, then we can present ourselves as a united front to the contractor, and they'll understand that we are there to be an extension of your staff, and that we are there to serve in the same capacity as the TxDOT inspectors were, that we are going to help them solve their problems. We're there to keep the job moving, and we're not going to be a roadblock. So we really need to work on making sure that we have communicated with you as to how you want that to look, so that when we talk to the contractor, we look just like an extension of the TxDOT staff. Number 2, a relationship built on trust is critical between TxDOT and the consultant. One thing that I know, and I'm here, kind of representing all consultants, but I know that this is true of all consultants. We want to do the job that you want done. We don't want to use our model. We want to use your model. So it's real important for us to talk to you about what is your definition of a successful project here. We need to interact with you about how do you see this? What is the most important thing for you, TxDOT, in this project getting completed successfully? And then once we establish that, we have to work on that level of trust with TxDOT as well, just to make sure that your CEI team is, once again, just an extension of your staff doing this project exactly like you want it done. And I think, it's a mistake for us to think that we know what a successful project is if we haven't asked TxDOT, what is a successful project? I mean, for you, it may be, I don't want to get any complaint calls. Or it may be, if this isn't finished on time, it's going to be big trouble. So we need to gather all of those ideas together and make sure that we're successfully representing you, and that we can build that level of trust with you to make sure that we're presenting this the way you want. And that goes along with making sure that our communication back with you, if it's about a change order, if it's about a change in scope, that we're getting back to you immediately and making sure that we're interacting with you on that. And then the last thing I want on my list. Number one, the performance and reputation of the PM and the CEI consultant firm are critical. Someone told me this, I think, my first day as a consultant, is that all you have is your reputation. For a consultant, you know, at TxDOT you have a lot of job security, but at a consultant, all we have is our reputation as an individual and as a firm. So we have to be certain all the time that we're working on maintaining our good reputation or improving our reputation if we need to improve it. So part of that is, once again, doing the job that you have hired us to do. And, you know, I think about how excited we are when we go in the interview and the presentation that we give you. It's our responsibility as consultants to maintain that throughout the duration of the project. It's, you know, it's not about winning the project, it's about managing the project for you. So keeping that reputation good is critical to us so that we can continue winning work with you. And I think about when I worked at TxDOT, I would get mad at a consultant who provided a bad set of plans, and I had an issue in the field with him, and I'd go in Moose's office, he was TP&D then, and I'd say, give me one of those consultant rating forms. You know, they did a terrible job. And when a consultant did a good job, I'm like, well, that's my expectation. So, you know, I think in closing, I would like to ask that if you have a consultant who's doing a good job at CEI or anything else, design, schematic, whatever they're doing for you, don't forget to rate them. So don't forget to give them a good rating when they're done, because it means a lot to keeping our good reputation. And that's all I really have. Any questions?
When it comes to training for new staff that were not TxDOT staff, are you looking to TxDOT to have some formal training where all consultants would get trained on the same baseline skill set? Or you hoping every consultant train their own staff and have consultants different levels of base knowledge?
So the question is, when it comes to training our staff that's not former TxDOT staff, you know, what is our methodology for getting that done? We have to have on-the-job training, as I mentioned. We need to make sure that our people just know the basics of how to write a DWR and how to perform in the field, how to inspect work, how to get along with contractors. But, you know, there are lots of opportunities for us to train our own people. ACI has good training, TxSAPA has good training. We can get testing certifications that way. Stan Switek gave a presentation yesterday where he said there are going to be like 80 classes available for inspectors. There are YouTube videos. We need to be looking at those to see if those are helpful to us. I keep a copy of the IDP for my inspectors, and I know it's been updated. That's a really good tool for us training our people, because that's the same manual that TxDOT's training their inspectors, is the Inspector Development Program. But yeah, we would really love it if TxDOT had the ability to help us train our staff. And, you know, that's one of my questions I'm going to go back and ask when I get back is, you know, how can I get one or two of my people involved in those classes? Or, you know, maybe we need to ask TxDOT if they can help us train our people by involving us in those classes. But I think there are plenty of opportunities. We just have to take advantage of them. Anybody else? Mm-hmm. Martin asked about the 2-week procurement for state contracts and 3-week for federal contracts. I'll tell you, Martin, we use every second that you give us. So I don't know if it make it better or worse. I think you know, we would love to have more time, but you know, we can also get back to business faster if we have less time. So I think my corporate people, my corporate president would say, don't give them more time, because then we can be doing more meaningful work when we're not working on proposals. But I know last week we had one in Fort Worth at the last minute. They gave us an extra week, and I'd plan on working to midnight that night. And when I saw that they gave us some extra time, I'm like, whew, I get to go home at 5 o'clock. So yeah, and you know, we're still working on it because they did give us the extra time. So we're going to fill the time that you give us with perfecting our SOQs and our proposals. So I could see either way. You know, we appreciate any extra time you give us, though. I agree. Yeah, marketing is definitely meaningful work. We like doing that part of the job.